Globally, there are over 690 million people living in extreme poverty. That means that somehow they are surviving on less than $1.90 a day. It's estimated that countries lose over $427 billion in taxes due to international corporate tax abuse and private tax evasion. Now, the Tax Justice Network says that the solution to this is implementing a wealth tax. And as more and more people learn about this tax evasion, the more they are in favor of a wealth tax and having those proceeds go to help the poor. Now, is this whole wealth tax idea something that's been born out of the last dozen or so years? No, not at all. In fact, it is something so Islamic that it is part of the fundamental 5 pillars of Islam. And you might be thinking, well, Salam, I know those 5 pillars and they all have like a religious angle, like declaration of faith, praying, fasting, and pilgrimage to Mecca. So how does this 5th one relate to religion? When you do a deep dive into these 5 pillars, you realize that it's all about creating unity and order and justice. This 5th pillar, known as Zakat, which is the wealth tax, is designed to create economic justice and maintain order in society. Just think about all the stories you've read involving dragons and how the dragon comes into a village, takes all the wealth, and then hoards it. Meanwhile, the village is thrown into chaos and poverty until a band of villagers come together, or a dwarves and a hobbit, and they get their pitchforks and they find this dragon and they smite the dragon. So then they can bring their wealth back into their economy and, as a result, restore the balance. Now, Zakat does all of that without having to find a pitchfork and without having to go find that dragon. Zakat, in a nutshell, is a 2.5% tax on unused wealth that hasn't been used for a year. And what ends up happening is that the proceeds from that go to help the poor, orphans, travelers in need, and refugees. Now, Zakat isn't just about how all of society can benefit, but also it helps the person who is giving it. And when you give your money in the name of God, then that helps purify yourself from the selfishness and greed that money can truly corrupt you with. And just think about it. In 2010, it's estimated that there was between $21 and $32 trillion in offshore accounts, just sitting there, doing nothing, but growing. I mean, legally, there might not be anything wrong with that, but ethically and morally, there certainly is, especially when there are over 690 million people living in extreme poverty. Can you imagine having the finest sports car and just leaving it in a garage and never driving it? That car was meant to be driven, just the way money was meant to be spent. And by taxing it, even by such a small amount, doesn't make the rich any less rich, but it makes all the difference for the people who are living at the bottom. In fact, we see in Islamic history, there was a time when Zakat was so successful, it was difficult to even find people who were struggling to give it to. So, in a nutshell, Zakat isn't just a wealth tax. It is the ultimate solution to ending poverty and purifying our hearts from selfishness and greed. And best of all, we don't have to go out and find a dragon. I mean, I don't even own a pitchfork.